Welcome, everyone. And today we have a great branding coach. We have a woman that has devoted her whole life for branding. We have somebody that has said, let me help you become a great brand. This lady has worked with the top brand experts to create great concepts. So without further ado, I just want to say thank you so very much for not helping the community, but also helping individuals with disabilities showcase what they're all about. So welcome, madam. Thank you for coming. Tell us more about what you do.
Well, you are very welcome, and I'm really pleased to be here. Yes, I am a branding expert. I run a company in Austin, Texas called Soul Marketing. I also have another business where I work with early-stage companies, helping them tell their stories effectively through their investor pitches, raising money, called investorpitches.com. And I am a self-styled brand dominatrix, and that means that it's my life, my job, to help organizations uncover the core DNA of their brands and express that in very powerful ways to their audiences and their customers.
Interesting. And when did you feel that you had this gift? At what age, at what stage of the game?
I would say it says in my bio that I was born to brand, and literally I think I was born to brand. I probably walked out of my mother's womb ready to brand. I've always been compelled to think about the stories that companies and individuals and products are telling to their audiences, and what I'm really jazzed about with regard to branding is giving customers a seat at the table when companies are trying to figure out their strategies and figure out what are the stories that they want to tell to people. I've been fascinated by advertising. I've been fascinated by design. I've been fascinated by the words that organizations and people and even politicians are using to bond people emotionally to their brands. And so it's kind of been sort of a lifelong pursuit, and I have been doing some form of branding or marketing my entire adult life, more than a quarter of a century now.
Interesting, Deb. That's great to hear. Now, with that, Deb, Gabor, your name is?
It's Gabor.
Or did I butcher it? Gabor.
Yeah,
okay.
It's Gabor, like Jaja or Ava Gabor.
Okay. Now, Ms. Gabor, tell us some branding strategies that you feel that are great.
Great. That's a super question. So really where the whole thing starts, and I like to explain to people that the root of all branding is that your brand lives in the hearts and minds of your customers. And I always tell companies and individuals who are looking to build a brand that your brand can't exist without your customers. And, whether you like it or not, you have a brand, because perception is reality, and your brand is about them. So I always tell my clients, brand or be branded. So, what I explain to organizations is that since your brand lives in the hearts and minds of your customers, you have to be in touch with them, and you have to understand what's important to them, and you have to understand what is the story that they're trying to tell for their lives, and you have to understand what makes them feel good, and most importantly, as a brand, you have to bond with them emotionally. You have to make them feel something, and you can't make people feel something if you don't know them. So that's kind of the core of the branding methodology that I teach, and the branding methodology that we use in our business, and also the branding methodology that's outlined in my book. And so really, the whole idea is just giving customers a seat at the table and making sure that their points of view are represented. So that's kind of the core of it, and that's where it all starts.
Interesting. I truly like that. Now, with that, tell us the essence of why you created your book and why.
So, as I said, I was probably born to brand. I'm compelled to brand. It's really, really important to me that as many people out there who are trying to create success for themselves through business understand the practice of branding. And so there are lots of great theoretical books out there, lots of really good marketing textbooks and academic works about branding, but there wasn't anything out there that was targeted directly at entrepreneurially minded and spirited business leaders or entrepreneurs themselves, founders who were trying to get into business. There wasn't anything that was really taking the practice of branding and breaking it down into plain English for people to be able to understand, but more importantly, be able to take action on right away. So I wrote what's basically a branding how-to book because I feel that people deserve it and they're not going to be able to do it without it. So, writing the book, it's always been in my head. It was, it was always there. It was always something that I wanted to do. I felt compelled to do it because I want as many people out there to be able to take advantage of these great methodologies and practices that I've developed over 25 plus years and be able to do it for themselves if they wanted to.
I see. Great. Now, if you could, why did you name your book that? Branding is like sex, or as easy as sex. I'm very, very curious because why would you put both of those two together? And just curious if you could explain. I know that you've already repeated yourself several times, but if you could go a little bit more in depth on the reason why you created your book that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me talk to you a little bit about how branding is sex. And the title of the book is Branding is Sex, Get Your Customer Laid and Sell the Hell Out of Anything. And while that title has proven to be a little bit problematic, it's definitely provocative. It gets people's attention. But branding is like sex because the goal of all great brands is to make people feel something. That's what I just said a couple of minutes ago. The best brands in the world are the ones that give their users the feeling of this toe-curling, mind-blowing orgasm. And here's how branding is like sex. So when you think about, the best feeling that you've ever had in the world, sometimes it's the feeling of having sex. It's the feeling of having an orgasm, being completely blissful. So branding is a little bit like understanding Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you remember from your psychology classes from college, Maslow's hierarchy of needs demonstrates that everybody is sort of on a path to self-actualization. The idea is you want to reach this state of mind where you are at your most creative, you're at your most successful, everything is clear for you, you have achieved this higher state. Well, in order to achieve that higher state, you have to satisfy the basic needs of life first before you get there. That's why Maslow's hierarchy is a pyramid, right? So at the bottom of the pyramid, you have basic physiological needs, which are food, water, shelter, air, things like that. In the middle two tiers of the pyramid, you have things like affiliation needs, and you have esteem needs, things that make you feel something and give you emotional support once you've satisfied your basic physiological needs. And at the top of the pyramid are these sort of self-expressive needs. Well, brands are the same. So for a brand to really, really reach the pinnacle of self-actualization, it has to understand what are the basic needs that it has to satisfy for its users or its customers. How does it make that user feel? What does it make them feel? How does it bond emotionally? But most importantly, the best brands in the world are the ones that tell a great story about the person who's using them, the self-expressive benefits. So I always explain to people how branding is like sex is like this. So if you have a brand that you really, really love, that you're really into, using that brand, having that brand, showing people that brand is all part of the story that you want to tell yourself and you want to show others about your life, right? And when that story is going well, you've got the world on a string. You've got a great feeling and you feel like you can achieve anything. And that feeling makes you think that you're invincible and that you can take on the world. And that feeling makes you want to have sex. So where the whole branding is sex thing came from was from working with clients. I work a lot with technology and digital media companies where within the organization you have a lot of very analytical minds, very engineering focused minds. And the concept of branding and the concept of getting getting inside a customer's heart in addition to their mind is something that's foreign to them. And I found that when we were getting stuck in the brand strategy process, I could stop everything and I could look these engineers in the eye and I could say, all right, let me break it down for you. Tell me, how does this particular brand get its customers laid? And then we would walk through that process of figuring out what is the story for the customer. It sort of opened up new brain territory for people who are very analytically minded. And so that's how I ended up naming the book Branding is Sex.
Wow, I truly like it. That's very inspiring and very straight to the point. But my question is, if that's the case, explain to me why Target created the word Target. I'm like, Target is synonymous of a little dog, and it has several red rings, and that's how they called it. I'm like, the dog is no longer there. I'm like, at least permanent in the branding stage. It's just the word Target. So
Right.
explain to us that. To me, there's no, I don't get an emotional aspect of Target.
Oh,
The
gosh.
emotion
Well, I disagree. I think Target has a very strong emotional connection with its most important customers. Target tells a great story. And, if you look into the Target brand, this is a brand that's all about helping people find what they want and have a great experience while doing it and get great value for the things that they want to purchase. Also, Target has this great strategy of bringing in not only their own house brands, but bringing in great brands that people have bonded with all over the world, bringing them to the store, pricing them lower so that they can give access to maybe higher end, more sophisticated brands that everyday consumers don't have access to. So Target's big competitor is Walmart, right? They basically, we'll walk through this whole idea of this brand values pyramid, which is sort of like the Maslow hierarchy for branding, with these two brands. At their core, Walmart and Target deliver the same thing. Low-priced goods, big box retail, right on the corner, everyone about 3 miles apart from every other one. However, those two shopping experiences are completely different from one another. You go to Walmart because you just want the best price guaranteed always. You go to Target because you want to have a shopping experience where you can find those things, but you can feel respected as a consumer. You can feel loved and honored as a consumer. It has a fun, lighthearted feel. The shopping experiences are very, very different. And so how we look at how those two brands are different from one another is by identifying, first of all, what does it say about a person that their go-to place to shop is Target versus Walmart? And so that Target brand, going back to that bullseye logo that you were talking about, I think Target's brand is brilliant. Target's brand, the story that brand tells is all about the people who shop there, that they are absolutely on target when they shop there, that they are going to find what they're looking for, and they are going to be surprised and delighted by the experience that they have. They're going to pay the price that they want to pay. It's an on-target shopping experience, and it says about the people who shop there that they like the convenience and location and availability of Target. They like the array of goods that are available there, but they also like to feel respected and a little bit happy and a little bit delighted by their shopping experience versus people who are shopping at Walmart. They're generally more value-minded, a little bit more utilitarian, and what they're really, really driven by is the lowest prices, even though those two big box retailers, and they could be right across the street from each other. Here in my town, they definitely are. They carry the same goods, but the shopping experiences are the brand. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I was thinking more of an analytical aspect. I know that the historical portion of Target does all that stuff, but you're talking about the two biggest rivals, Walmart and Target. Let me tell you something. If I have to definitely buy, I'll buy at Target, and the reason why is because there's something called, you could price match, right?
Mhm.
And you said it very clearly. You want to get the best thing for the lowest dollar. That's why you
Mhm.
come to these places. If
Yep.
not, you go to a boutique store, correct?
Correct.
Okay. For the last maybe 3 months, 4 months, I've seen some odd end things. For example, I've gone to a baby shower, so I've had to buy a stroller. I've gone to this, I have to buy that. I've seen a TV, I have to buy, I want to buy it. I'm just giving stereotypical, concepts, okay?
Mhm.
Because a
Yep.
lot of people see that, or toys, or whatever have you not. In Walmart, well, I want to buy the best thing for the lowest dollar amount, correct? Who does that very well and has strategically placed themselves as number one? They don't have a retail store. They have a virtual store, but it's not your brick and mortar store. That's Amazon.
Mhm.
The majority of people actually they price match with Amazon to the different retailers, Target, Best Buy, whoever, and they accept it. Not Walmart. Walmart
Mhm.
says, "Oh no, we're not going to we're not going to be a price matching with Amazon because the way they see it, you have to pay in to the system to Amazon Prime. So they don't pay in. Yes, they do pay in because they're part of Sam's Clubs, but they don't see it that way. So at the end of the day, Walmart, once you try to get it for the lowest dollar amount, you can't. For example, I saw a pair of a LG tones. Before it was the regular LG tones, and they were like 60 something dollars. Now they have the LG tones that are infused with titanium, maybe infused with gold, this, that, so on and so forth. And they're 150, 135, whatever, right? I could get those same ones, those exact same ones at Amazon for $85, $65.
Right. Well, Amazon is
What?
not paying rent and for real estate, and I would argue that Amazon and Walmart are not in the same category. Consumers don't consider them to be in the same category. People who shop at Amazon for different reasons. If you are 100% price driven and you have time to wait to actually not get instant gratification on a purchase, then potentially you might shop at Amazon. Amazon, what the brand stands for, is everything under the sun, A to Z. Look at the Amazon logo. There's an arrow between the A and Z and Amazon. Basically, the whole idea, it's the world superstore. It's anything you want at any price, and you can get that delivered to you directly, but you can't get instant gratification on it. The Walmart brand, they have a completely different business model, and consumers who are shopping at Walmart, the story that they're trying to tell about themselves to other people and to themselves for their lives with regard to those purchases is that they want the instant gratification of being able to buy something. So they're
Okay,
not
and
really
it's
the
great.
same. And pricing is not branding. So pricing and price matching and competing on the basis of just having the lowest prices is not branding. So the essence of branding is really, really going in and answering these three questions about your brand. And this is your mini MBA in branding. And everybody who's listening, this is the main takeaway from this whole thing, is that everything in branding comes down to answering these three questions. So it's not about pricing, it's not promotion, it's not placement, it's not availability, it's not the product itself. Everything about branding is this. The first thing is, what does your brand say about the person who's using it? The second thing is, what is the singular thing you get from this brand that you can't get anywhere else? And that talks about differentiation, meaningful differentiation. And then the third thing is really understanding that every customer who uses your brand is trying to create a story for their life where they are the hero. How does your brand make that person a hero? So Amazon and Walmart, they have three different answers to those three questions, even though they're in the same business. even though they are competing with each other for buyers, the answers to those three questions are distinctly different, and that's what makes those two brands vastly different from one another. And Amazon's an online retailer. They have a completely different business model than Walmart. They compete with each other for buyers, but they don't compete for mind share as far as branding goes. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but we were talking about not only branding, but we were talking also the bottom end. And what is the bottom line? The dollar amount, right?
Not always.
Wow.
All right, case in point, let me tell you, okay? I wouldn't set foot into a Walmart regardless of how, like, you could pay me $1 million and I would not set foot into a Walmart store. So this is the notion of what I call irrational loyalty. Because if I were a rational human being and I wanted to buy a TV, let's say I want to buy a Samsung 47-inch TV, right? And I know in my mind that the cheapest price for me to get that is Walmart. I don't like the experience of shopping at Walmart. I don't like what it says about me as a person. I don't like how it feels to go into a Walmart store because to me personally, it feels like I'm shopping in a fireworks stand. I don't like the crowds. I don't like waiting in long lines. I would much rather go and buy that same thing down the road at a Target store because I like the experience of shopping in a Target. I like what it says about me when I walk out with the Target sticker on the box. I'm not embarrassed to be seen at a Target because personally, I like the experience of shopping there. I like the other things that they carry there. I like the wide open aisles. Maybe I'm going to pay $50 more for that TV set. I'm okay with that. That's the notion of irrational loyalty, and that is the essence of branding. Rationally, you would think, hey, she can buy the same product for much less down the road at a Walmart store. However, branding allows you to charge a premium for your product. Having a strong brand that bonds with people emotionally is something that allows you to have more profitable relationships with customers. Walmart makes money not on margin. Walmart makes money on volume. And I'm not a volume shopper, right? So that, the bottom line is not always priced. It's not always priced. For instance, I drive a very, very expensive car because I like it. I like what it says about me. It says that I've arrived. It says I'm a successful business person. It says that that I'm 48 years old and I can afford it. I like how it looks when I roll up in front of a client's office. They get the impression that I'm credible and I know what I'm doing and I've been paid a lot for my expertise. At the same time, I have a car that is almost exactly like the car that I drive that I bought for my 19-year-old daughter. It does exactly the same thing. It has wheels. It has a steering wheel. It has power door locks, power windows, power steering. It was a $22,000 car. I think it was a great bargain, right? It has all of the same features as my very expensive $60,000 car. However, I drive a Land Rover. That's a Volkswagen. Those two brands say something completely different about us as drivers, right? If you answer the questions of what does it say about a person that they use this brand, what is the singular thing that they get from this brand they can't get anywhere else, and how does this brand make them a hero in their own lives, you get two completely different stories. So price isn't always the bottom line, and so the advice that I want to give to people who are in business or who are just starting out in business, don't feel like you have to undercut everyone else in order to be successful. If you have something unique about your business that is unique to your brand, that tells a great story, a differentiated and unique story about your customers, then you have the opportunity to win their hearts and bond with them.
But I have a question.
Sure.
My question, and sorry to cut you off, but you're right. I love Land Rover. Land Rover to me is majestic, not to be chauvinistic, but it's a woman's car. It's a man's car. It's a car. It's a beautiful work of art. But that's the way I see a Land Rover. A Volkswagen, that tells a history. That tells everything that happened in that era.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you're right. I'm like, in those cases, you can't look at price. Price does not define what you're driving. It's defining the legacy. But I feel that, for example, you were talking about Target, Walmart. example of that TV, I'll tell you right now, yes, I will never buy a TV at Walmart. They don't know what they're talking about. Would I buy a TV at Target? Maybe, yes. Compared to Walmart, definitely. But where would I really buy a TV? I would buy it at Best Buy. Why? Because I feel that that's what they do. They are electronic centric. That's their main objective. Electronics.
Right.
Yes.
And that's for you. So that's the thing. Like millions and millions of TVs are sold at Walmart and Target every year, and also at Best Buy. And so the Best Buy brand is about expertise. It's about enthusiasm and, addiction to electronics. It's about educated salespeople selling directly to consumers. It's a great brand. It's very strong. It's very clear what that brand stands for. For the people who love that brand, that's their go-to brand, right? It's not a go-to brand for me. I don't really care about the expertise of the salesperson when I'm buying the TV. What's important to me when I buy the TV is a retail experience that feels respectful, that is convenient to me, that makes me feel good, that gives me that feeling of a toe-curling orgasm. I am not the target audience for Best Buy. Going into a Best Buy for me feels a little bit like going into a Walmart for me. So you are probably Best Buy's ideal customer. And that's another concept that's really important, right? For you, Best Buy is the ideal place to buy a TV because what's important to you in the buying process and the story that you want to tell about your life when you're buying a TV is that you bought it from somebody who has the most expertise, right? So the ideal customer is...
Yes, but in reality, and that's what I was going to say, I feel that, again, you're right. I'm a technological person, but I feel that Best Buy, they get a lot of people that they think they know a lot, but but sometimes they really don't. I'm not saying that everybody's that way, but sometimes they really don't. I feel that the best customer is the most educated customer that really looks at reviews, looks at videos, makes sure
and that's not me. I don't have time for that. Yeah, I don't have time for that. I've never bought anything that way. And there are a whole bunch of people out there who are like me, where they use the brand and the relationship they have with the brand as a shortcut to that they just know, like, hey, I can trust that this, if this particular retailer carries this brand and I meet with a sales associate there, that I'm gonna be able to skip all of that kind of stuff. So what you're pointing out here is really, really important. And again, this is the essence of branding. We are not all the same. Customers are not all the same. We don't all have the same beliefs. You can group customers together based on the types of beliefs that they have. You say, for instance, you're like, I believe, and you said very strongly, I believe that the best consumer, the best buyer is somebody who's very educated, who reads reviews, all that kind of stuff. I'll tell you right now, I don't give a shit. What's more important to me is that I get in, get out, and I just know that it's going to work. I don't have time to pour over a bunch of reviews. I hardly ever read reviews of anything. I just go to the go-to brands. That's the essence of this notion of irrational loyalty. And so the best brands in the world are the ones who are very, very clear about who their customers are. And so there are brands out there that are really designed for people who are technological experts or people who are technophiles or people who care very, very much about what other people say in helping them, be educated about their purchases. There are lots of brands for those people, and those brands are no better or no worse than any other brand. What those brands realize is that we are a brand for this ideal customer, and the notion of the ideal customer is identifying the one sort of singular profile of the best possible customer that you could have. And they're usually unicorns. They don't exist in real life. But you create brands for the types of customers who you think will be the perfect customer. And then you market to as many people who are as close to that profile as you can get. So, that's the idea. If there was one big takeaway from the conversation where you and I are not agreeing on every point, the big takeaway is the best brands in the world are the ones that are not trying to be all things to all people, that they're trying to be the most important thing to the most important person for their particular brand. Does that make sense to you? You know, like I don't want to read reviews. I am not an educated consumer when it comes to electronics. I use Apple everything. Even though I know rationally that there are other products out there that cost less, that maybe perform better, that have more capabilities, that are expandable. I know all this stuff, and I still don't care because I want to use a product that I just plug it in and it works. It says hello printer, it says hello TV, it says hello iPhone, and everything works together, and I don't want to deal with any of the technological stuff behind the scenes. That's irrational loyalty, that is brand love, and that is the essence of branding.
No, and you're right. I'm like, to me, I love Apple. Everything that I have in my house, as far as I could go, is Apple. I have everything from the Mac Pro all the way down to the Apple TV, the iWatch, the EarPods, everything. Why? Because I believe in that brand because they do know what they're doing, and I trust their expertise. Yes, you're not going to see me touch a Windows PC, not because I'm not technologically sound, but because I don't want to have the hassle of having viruses. And I feel that we are, you know, we might disagree on one or two things, but it's not we're disagreeing. I feel that what you're talking about is branding, and that is 150% of everything. But I feel that also people are looking at what is more economical for them at a given stage of their lives. Because, for example, let's talk about we were talking about a car, right?
Mhm.
I was seeing. I don't think they talked about it in the Super Bowl, but they were talking about it a couple of days before and definitely after. There's a lot of companies that are saying, okay, you want this Hummer, do you want this Hummer, or do you want this Land Rover, or do you want this Ferrari? Okay, good, fine. But here is car dealership A, B, and C, 3 different car dealerships. D and F. Before you go to A, B, and C, look at D and F because they have the same car, the same everything, for a fraction. You know, for just a fraction less than what you're going to buy in car dealership A, B, and C. You have to go to car dealership D and F. And I'm not saying that they're used. They're brand new. They just strategically are pricing their cars to attract more buyers.
Mhm. Which that's not a brand strategy. That is a marketing tactic. So the difference between branding and marketing, branding is a strategic activity. Branding is about identifying what is the core DNA of the brand, what is the story that the brand tells about the user, how does the brand bond with somebody emotionally in the long term. Marketing is tactical. Marketing is identifying what are we going to do to attract more buyers to our brand. Marketing is all about segmenting the market and coming up with pricing strategies and discounting and making offers. I actually picked up last night, I picked up this new car that I'm going to take to my daughter in Oklahoma this weekend where she goes to college. I bought her a car. There are several Volkswagen dealerships here in my town. I picked the one that had the biggest incentive. They all sell the same Volkswagen. I bought her a Volkswagen Tiguan, but this one particular dealer, it met all the criteria for me. It had the Volkswagen. It had the color that I wanted. It had the model that I wanted. It was close to my office, which is where I needed it to be. More importantly, though, they were offering a $3,700 discount over what the other dealerships were. That is a marketing tactic to get me in the door. I had already, in my heart and mind, bought the Volkswagen brand. So the difference is, between marketing and branding. Like I said, marketing is a tactical is a series of tactical executions where branding is the story of the brand. So, you have car dealer A, B, C, D, and they're all selling brand new Volkswagens. They're all within 50 miles of my home. I've already bought into the story of the Volkswagen brand. I like what Volkswagen says about me. I like the story of Volkswagen. I actually like the way that they're handling their PR nightmare. I'm willing to give Volkswagen a chance. Now, the marketing tactic part of that is, for me as a buyer, sort of weighing what are the most important attributes to me in the buying experience that I want to have. In this case, since I was buying a car for a 19-year-old girl, I wanted to get the lowest price, but I didn't want to drive 75 miles for it. So that's how I ended up at the dealership that I was.
No, and you're right. And you're absolutely right about that. Fair enough. No problem. So, could you give us a little excerpt of your book, a chapter that really is going to resonate in people's hearts and minds?
I think, here, let me grab a copy of the book here real quick. I'm just going to put the phone down for 1 second. Okay. So the chapter of the book that I like to direct people to that is really the core of everything that we've been talking about is chapter 2, and it's called The Brand Values Pyramid. And if people are listening and they want to go get this chapter for free and try it out before buying the book, you can go to the website brandingissex.com and you can download chapter 2 for free. But that's about the brand values pyramid, which talks about how branding is like sex and how branding is like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, kind of explains some of these things that we've been talking about here, the idea that the functional benefits and what a brand does and what it offers can be the same, but the brand experiences can be vastly different.
Okay. What else in that chapter is important?
What else is important in that chapter?
Yes, correct.
Gosh, it's been a really long time since I actually read chapter 2. I'll tell you, everything in chapter 2 is important. The cool thing about this book is that every chapter ends with either a case study or an interview with an actual client that we've worked with. The cool thing in this chapter of the book, in chapter 2, there's actually an example of a brand values pyramid for 2 cars. We actually talk about branding. There's a section of the chapter called Branding Lessons from My Garage, which talks about an Audi Q5 and a Hyundai Santa Fe, which are both mid-size sport SUVs. I think that that's really good because it really brings this point to life. And then there's a call out in the chapter entitled Brander Beware that talks about this idea that today's options are tomorrow's standard equipment. And the lesson there is, I don't know how old you are, but I'm old enough to have purchased a car way back in the day that didn't have power windows, power door locks, or power steering. A couple years later, after that, when I bought that car, it didn't have those things as standard. I actually had to pay extra for those. They were called options. And then a couple years later, the car manufacturers started making those things standard equipment. And as time goes on, the things that are options packages become standard equipment. And so when brands try to differentiate themselves just on the bells and whistles or just on power door locks, power windows, power steering, they're going to find themselves lost. Because if you have a feature that is imitatable by other people, they're going to imitate it. That's why brand is so important. And so this chapter explains why the top of the brand values pyramid, those self-expressive benefits, the answering of those 3 questions of what does it say about a person that they use the brand, what is the singular thing that they get from the brand, and how does the brand make them a hero in their own story, are so essential because the world is a competitive place. No matter what you do and no matter how much of a special snowflake you think you are and how unique you think your product or service is, there is always someone who can provide the same benefit or do the same thing. So avoid fatal conceit by making sure that you don't brand on the basis of just options packages. And so all of that is covered in chapter 2.
Okay. Now, my question is this, now that we're continuing with the topic about cars, okay, let's look at 3 high-end cars for a second. I'm not saying that low-end cars are nothing, but they're in a different price bracket. people would say, well, branding is great, but you also have to look at price brackets as well, that
If
you're
you're a
in.
price shopper, I'm not a price shopper, but if you're a
Correct.
price shopper, you do have to look at price brackets. Yes.
Correct. But again, I think that there's two sides to a story. For example, in the United States, I think that over 50% of people are financially not well enough for them to say, oh, we're going to, we're going to get a $90,000 car, for example, or, I'm just saying, because financially they're not well off. For something
Right.
that you and me,
And that's okay. I think that's fine.
no, that's okay. Yes, correct. Let's say you and me, for example, let's look at Tesla. Let's look at let's look at a Lamborghini, and let's look at a Land Rover.
Mhm.
Of those, and then a Ferrari. Of those four, what do you get? Yes, they're expensive. Yes, they're eccentric. But what do you get from all those four? Once you once you hear those names, what do what's the first thing that comes into your mind?
So let's start with Lamborghini. What you get there is you get sex, right? That's a really, really
Correct,
sexy
yes.
car. It basically says that this is a person, the person who is driving that car. And what you have to look at for these brands is what does it say about the person who's driving the car? What it says about the person who's driving that car is that they are someone who values precision and performance and speed in a sexy package. And
Correct.
that they want to tell a story about themselves that, they're very much aligned. Their values are very much aligned with that brand. What was the second brand that you mentioned? Tesla?
Tesla,
I
correct.
think, Tesla I think is a fascinating brand. I think it's an aspirational brand. This is for, to me, if somebody rolls up next to me driving a Tesla, which I live in Austin, Texas, and we are, besides Silicon Valley, we are probably ground zero for the purchase of the Tesla vehicles right now. What that says to me when I look at that brand is that this is a person who wants to have the most innovative, cutting-edge technology. They want to show other people that they are very independently spirited and very innovative and forward-thinking. I don't think it says that they care about the environment. That's not the story that they want to tell. I think they want to tell a story more of I am on the cutting edge, and I'm going to get the finest, most cutting edge thing that I can get because I like what it says about me as a person. Land Rover or Range Rover, that is sort of the elegant luxury for the pioneering spirit, right? You don't see, in this day and age, you don't see a lot of Land Rovers crisscrossing the desert. I see a lot of soccer moms dropping off their kids at the schools around my office, saying, it says like, we are very high, we value safety and security, but above all, we value the Queen's luxury. We value European luxury in a rugged vehicle. If we had to go off-road, we could, but we don't. We have all-wheel drive because we have a vacation home in Colorado, and we need to get up the hill of our driveway. So all of
I
these
talked about
vehicles-
Hummer.
Oh, Hummer? Huh. So Hummer, interestingly, like Hummer is an example of probably a broken brand promise. Are they even still selling vehicles to consumers?
No, they're already gone.
Okay. So Hummer is an example, like I said, of the broken brand promise. I don't believe that they ever set out to create a brand that we are a brand for dicks. Right? But that is what the brand has become. This is the broken brand promise. I believe that what they were trying to do was sort of capture the legacy and the history of the American military and sort of like good all-American fight. and, sort of that pioneering kind of disruptive yet down-home patriotic spirit. I believe that the brand backfired because they went out there and they produced these gigantic vehicles that were absolute gas guzzlers that took up a lot of room on the road, and the people who chose to drive them were people who were very, very flashy and who were, probably all image and no substance. And so that's an example of, what I said at the very, very beginning of this interview, this idea of brand or be branded. So I don't think that Hummer set out to create a brand that portrayed the people that use it with that image. But that's unfortunately because they didn't really control their brand and they didn't understand what's most important to American buyers in the car market. They just put a brand out there that appealed to this one segment of the population without really understanding what the impact of branding against those attributes would be, and they killed their brand because they, if you don't control your brand image, your customers will or your audience will, and that's exactly what happened to Hummer.
Last one, and that is LaFerrari.
Which one?
LaFerrari.
Ferrari? Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The call that I had just before we got on this interview was a guy who happens to be the head of the Ferrari Clubs of America, which I thought was fascinating. So Ferrari, interestingly, a lot of people who don't understand branding and don't know branding, they think that the Ferrari and Lamborghini brand are that they're one and the same, that they have a lot of similarities.
No, they're not.
They're not. And, I don't know that much about car brands, and I'm really just going from my humble point of view as a branding expert and a person who, sees cars driving down the road every day. So the Ferrari brand is a lot different than the Lamborghini brand. So, if you look under the hood, and I'm saying that in the most figurative way, they have a lot of similarities. They do the same thing. They're both fast. They're sleek. They look sexy. I look at somebody who's driving a Ferrari, to me, that's somebody who I know something about the story of their life, that they are successful, that they have a lot of self-confidence, that they want a high-performance, high-style vehicle. Ferrari is more sort of understated performance luxury sport to me. Lamborghini is more like, look at me, look at me, look at me. And I see the two brands very, very differently. They are not interchangeable, and they attract completely different types of buyers. I have the fortune to know, many people just through my business and through a lot of the things that I do in my community, a lot of people who own these super high-end, very fast sports cars. And to a T, the Lamborghini drivers and the Ferrari drivers and the Lotus drivers and the Tesla drivers, they're all vastly different from one another because of the stories that those brands tell about them.
Okay, and you're absolutely right. And what was that all about right there? High-end brands. Less than 10% of the population in the United States would ever afford those brands.
Yeah, that's okay. I would say Kia has a brand too. That's a low-end brand. Hyundai has a brand. That's a brand. So the last thing that I'll say, and I'm going to have to go because I have to go to another meeting, but the last thing that I'm going to say is that branding is not just for high-end brands, and that's covered extensively in the book. Branding isn't just for high-end brands. Branding is not just for consumer companies. Brands are important for business-to-business companies and services and products and things like that. Everything has a brand unless it's a commodity. And things that are commodities are things like corn futures and grain and coal and things like that. But unless it's traded on a commodities market, every single thing has a brand. So if you look around you at the stuff that you have around you, everything has a brand. I have a box of tissue on my desk. Let me turn it over. It's quilted northern tissue, right? So it has a brand associated with it. It is not a high-end brand. It is not a low-end brand. Walmart is a brand. When I think of, brands that sort of skim the bottom of the market, Walmart is something that comes top of mind when I think of automobiles. Kia is something that skims the bottom of the market. There are brands that are in the middle of the market, going back to this analogy of cars, because you seem like a car guy. You have Toyota and Honda and Hyundai, and you have a lot of the American brands. They all sort of sit in the middle market. So branding is not just for luxury brands. Branding is about a relationship that you, your company, you your product have with its users. And I say brand or be branded. Don't let the world take on the responsibility of branding you. Understand who you are for and what it is that your product is going to do for them that gives them the feeling that they want to hop in the sack with someone.
Fair enough. Sounds good. And do you have a YouTube channel? And how could people find you?
So I don't have a YouTube channel, but people can find me. They can either find me at solmarketing.com, that's SOL marketing.com, or you can go to the Branding is Sex website. It's Branding is Sex. There's 2 S's in there. brandingissex.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm @Deb_Soul, and you can buy the book any place where good books are sold, and especially at Amazon.
Sounds good. Perfect. Thank you so very much, Deb. And thank you to our loyal listeners. Without you, we would not be having Deb here. And most of all, thank you to our sponsors, gracebygrit.com. If you want to look sexy, if you want to look very, very strong doing athletics, look at Grace by Grit, especially if you want to be the up-and-coming entrepreneur. Go to www.gracebygrit.com and type in at the cart Exo Butterflies to get 20% off your purchase, as well as Think Shark. Thank you so very, very, very much for your time, madam. And to the next episode, take care, you guys.